Sir, the folks in the audience are getting restless.
Oh, I just keep hoping I'm going to wake up from this bad dream and... Oh, no, I suppose you're right, Luther. It's not going to be easy, but hey, they didn't elect me to do the easy things.
They respect you, sir. They know none of this is your fault.
Well, nothing for it. Guess I'll see you on the other side, Luther.
Break a leg, sir.
Thank you. You're too kind. Well, as you've no doubt heard, there's some bad news coming down the pipeline. I could come out here and spout a bunch of comforting BS about how we'll persevere and adapt, but, well, I know, and more importantly, you know, that that's not true. Thank you. Very kind. I love you all too. But folks, the rumors are true. Sean Penn, renowned philosopher king, moral arbiter of our time, girthy black dildo burner, Mr. Penn has weighed in on our chosen hobby.
Hey, screw Sean Penn!
No. There's no need for any of that. Mr. Penn knows better than all of us. After all, he voiced Terrence in the Angry Birds movie. And unfortunately, he is bothered by brutality towards beasts. He despises hunting and hunters. And who are we to keep on hunting when this edict has been handed down from on high? I never thought about how our easy kill technology detaches us from the purpose of our kill, but now that the guy from I Am Sam has opened my eyes, it looks like I was the one who was in fact the full retard. But you know what they say about God closing a door and opening a window. I think this will present an opportunity to get in touch with my own primal existence, and maybe then I'll be able to figure out what the hell was going on at the end of the tree of life. So, folks, I encourage you.
Sir, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Well, Luther, hey, couldn't this wait a minute?
It's Penn. He released a new edict. I think you need to see it right away.
Let's see. Whales being treated brutally, gruff goat, some alliterative garbage. Wait a second. Luther, you magnificent bastard. Great news, everyone, great news. Mr. Penn has announced an exception. Yes, it appears that the National Association of Guys Who Hunt Wild Boars with Their Own Bodies and Daggers will not be disbanding anytime soon.
It's a last-minute reprieve from the governor, like in that Sean Penn movie. What was it? The one with the dead guy who was always walking.
Who cares? Hey, grab your daggers, folks. Let's go stab a wild boar.
Hey everyone, 372 pages we'll never get back is starting now. I'm Michael J. Nelson. Connor is here as well. Connor, did you dig that off of the dark web or how?
That was it's the medium web. It just has people always have their Alexas running and such. Mm-hmm. And like every now and then one of them actually uploads the audio that's sort of playing in the background. Sure. Without the participants intending it to be. So, you download a torrent file of all of those recordings. You hope you get something dirty and risque, but this is what I got. I got the meeting of the Boar Hunting Association.
Well, it's lucky that we could use it. It's coincidental, but
sure.
It worked out well for us.
Sure, yeah. I'll have to just maybe next time it'll be the dirty stuff. A man can dream.
Yeah. Well, you probably know if you're listening, but this is the podcast where we read through books that we are probably not going to like. We've done Ernest Cline, we've done William Shatner, we've done some lesser-known things. Dwight David, what's his last name?
Thrash. DDT.
Yeah, that's that. I always forget that part, and that's it. He really lands it with that name on that, Thrash. That's the punchy part.
Yep.
And right now we're working through the, I believe it is the oeuvre of Sean Penn. I don't think he's written anything else, has he?
No, God willing. And the paperback comes out tomorrow from when we're recording this. So if you're hopping on the train at all, if you were deterred, if what deterred you about Bob Honey, Who Just Do Stuff, was the price of the hardcover book, uh, well, then you can buy the paperback tomorrow and save $1 or $2 off that. So
And let's,
welcome aboard.
Yeah, let's step it up, people. His pool ain't going to heat itself. All right. So buy those copies.
You mentioned Klein. I woke up this morning and some guy has left us a comment on the website, where we actually host these MP3s. Not many people go there or comment there, but this guy left a comment on episode 1 of the podcast.
Oh,
he says, I didn't like this book at all, but yeah, ellipses, maybe someone who gives a fail to the Marvel movies isn't the best to be reviewing it. If you don't like those, the most popular comic book movies of all time, you are definitely not in this book's target audience. It's like a guy with celiac disease reviewing a pasta restaurant. It might be funny, but I'm not sure where the value is beyond that. So I think I'll go back in time to 2 years ago when we posted that and let us of 2017 know that, hey, Beckett does not approve of this decision we've made.
I think in the podcast we could not have been more clear that we were not in the target audience. So at least we weren't fooling him. We weren't pulling the old switcheroo there, Beckett. We were pretty upfront about that.
Sure, yeah.
It's kind of built into the premise of the show itself.
But that's what's nice about these other, who is the target audience for Bob Honey, Who Just Do Stuff? There's no out to make that brilliant rhetorical argument, I suppose.
Beckett's going to have a hard time finding that one. Yeah, like you guys clearly won't like Sean Penn because I don't know how you'd construct that argument.
Yes, the no true Scotsman I don't think applies for the likers of Sean Penn's poetry and the Phil Ox Venn diagram.
Oh, full on Phil Ox. I think every single one.
Yeah,
from here on out.
So I looked at at the back of the book was credits and permissions, and it just has 1, 2, 3, 4, just 6 different Phil Ox samples, copyright or use with permission type of thing. So
yeah, there was unfortunately in this last read, and this is, ladies and gentlemen, this is the last read. You're done. You're free. School is out. Bust open that door and put on your shorts and take your bike and go out and have fun. School is out.
Go out to the desert with your candles and your girthy.
Yes. There was a lot of irritating checking to see whether what he's putting in here is Sean Penn or quoting some obscure song or I didn't like that about this. There was a ton of that in this reading, and I may have missed some, and I may step in it here. But what are you going to do?
Well, you're going to draw Beckett's ire, is what you're going to do if you. There was a lot of things that were like sort of in quotes and stuff or in italics that you're not sure if he's quoting someone, Phil Ox, or not. But every time I looked it up, the only result that came up was the text of this book. So I think unless he singled it out, we're left to believe it was either him or Pappy,
or that German scream band or whatever. But we'll get to that. We're down a department this week, most likely, because we can't do fanfic.
Yeah, we got none. There's no. Fanfic was probably the most difficult for the people to do this time. Easiest for you to guess.
Yeah, it's true.
I'm not sure what about this lent itself that way. Maybe just the utter madness, the way the story is told. The other authors sort of like had their ticks and their quirks, but they weren't writing from a attempt to be artistic, which I think might be what foiled everybody here. You could replicate the characters and the plot and the verbal tics of the thrashes and declines, but Sean Penn was on a whole different level.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that the alliteration is back strong in this bottom quarter of the book.
Yes.
There's a lot of that to deal with, a lot of dumb sentences of the week. I'm sure they'll come up as we go through it. So
yes.
But let's get to it. Oh, we do have. Do we have some fan? Mail for later.
Yeah, we got some emails, and I thought I'd read a few extra ones just because we don't have any fanfic. So people had a lot of theories, a lot of reactions, a lot of people just wrote emails that were essentially the equivalent of the painting The Scream. So we'll want to share so people can commiserate and make sure this was not read in vain.
Yeah, we're in this together, people. Should we dive in?
Yeah, we left off at the part where he was asking Pappy, "What's with all the opiates and incest in your area?"
Mm-hmm.
When he asked Pappy that, Pappy sort of got in his face and demanded that he repeat himself, and so Bob repeated himself and said, "What's with all the opiates and incest in your area?" And then the man smiles, sits back down, sips his coffee, and answers, "Just folks getting by." And so it was, ellipses. And I thought, I really assumed that the next word was going to be pointless. And so it was pointless. The entire exchange with Pappy in the bar, his reveal that he was creating him, was very pointless.
It reminded me of my favorite thing in movies when someone will say a line and then another character will just go, "What?" And then they say the line again. It's like,
yes,
you are making the movie. You have control over this not happening.
Right.
It's not adding to anything. It's just someone not hearing it. Like, why would you waste film time on that?
And that is something, yeah, once you have pointed that out to me, it's something you see a ton. Like if there's not a supercut of it that's 25 minutes long, I'd be shocked.
Right. Well, that's the book equivalent of it. I guess he was just very proud of that, what's with all the opiates and incest, and I hope you didn't miss that, folks. Here it is again.
Well, the tension of whether, Pappy getting in his face to only be immediately diffused one sentence later. But for that one sentence, I was just hanging on right there. I wasn't sure what was going to happen.
But at least Pappy does he kind of lives up to the Pappy thing with his, son, you're going to do what you're going to do. Just don't get yourself bit by one of them Zika mossies. That's what colorful people call mosquitoes with disease carrying. They call them Zika mossies.
Yeah, they not the preferred skeeter, which is something that I've actually heard that sounds pretty folksy, but you had to go one step further.
Yeah.
Zika, though, I was like, there's so much in here that is very much. It just seems like he's determined to make future readers be able to pinpoint to the week, when he crapped this book out,
Oh, coming up, he's so on the nose on that. It ages poorly, even it's not very old at all, and it's like, oh God, this is aging very badly.
Yeah, I just the whole time I was reading, I kept thinking there was going to be a Kofifi joke any second, based on what was happening. But it really is. It's things that, even if they were moderately entertaining the first time around, they were the type of jokes and memes that were so quickly turned to irritating and overused that it's a weird thing to base a book around.
I'm surprised he didn't just because it doesn't seem like this stuff is very hard to come up with, especially once he just starts. It's obviously just Sean Penn rambling. It's something that he would say if, he'd corner you in a bar and just start rambling that. He should, for the paperback, he should have just rambled out another one that keep it current.
Right.
Exactly. The 2019 edition with new rants.
Right. Yeah. Like the way that a DVD would have a director's cut or something.
Right. So plot wise, I was going to bring that up. Towards the end, we'll get to it. If we just summarize the plot of the whole thing, which is sort of unfair because many works of art, exist with weird plots or upside down plots or no plot at all. But the plot of this is, it reminds me of Kurt Vonnegut used to do a bit about it where he'd take the great works and say, a plot point should do something, it should change something. And he'd go through like Hamlet and go, well, what does this mean? Nothing at all. It does not move the plot forward. And it was a good, live, speaking thing. You'd get a lot of laughs on that.
Sure.
But this one reminded me of that. Well, what's happening now? Bob is going to New Orleans. Do you remember exactly why? I can't remember why.
It must harken back to his trip there when he abandoned all those people to die in some sort of possibly metaphorical action. But I think that was the only thing that I mean, maybe he liked it there.
Yeah. He's going here, and then he's going to go to Miami? Right?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so that's the plot. Bob is going to New Orleans.
But I mean, so yeah, you're mocking him now, but once he gets to New Orleans, some real serious stuff happens. He goes to get a plate of fried calamari, and across the street of there is Checkpoint Charlie's, the hub for acid-dropping youth. Two of its trippers had gone walking and perceived Bob through the glass as a sideways-sitting sphinx with a candelabra in its mouth. Within 20 minutes, Bob's drink had been dosed with 7 hits of liquid acid. And this reminded me of in elementary school, there was like, the brief rumor of like, hey, if any guy like tries to give you temporary tattoos with like cartoon characters on them, like don't accept them because what he's doing is he's going to put acid on those temporary tattoos. So when you, the 5th grader, apply the tattoo of, Plucky Duck from Tiny Toons, you will then get high on acid. And then after 8 hours of thinking that you were going to die, you'll decide that you like that experience and go back and then purchase more acid from the guy. That was the hard to figure out thing, is that why this guy would give away acid to people who did not know they were taking acid for free.
This was a theory of my mother's as well. And she told us that people would tie you down. My brothers and I loved that touch, and give you drugs so that you would be hooked and then have to go back. It's like, Mom, have you ever heard of anyone being tied? Where do they tie you down? Is it like on the schoolyard? They just like take a jump rope and tie you down. Right.
And it's like an Insta addiction.
Yeah. Insta addiction. And then you're hooked for life. And
I guess these kids who are, just hanging out at an acid dropping thing are well off enough that they can spare 7 doses of acid to prank a stranger and then just sort of go about their day knowing that has happened.
I thought to myself, once he had gotten the acid, like, oh no, now this book's going to start to get kind of incoherent. Here's what, to step back just a little. So are the people, they're tripping already, so they perceive Bob through the glass as a sideways sitting sphinx? Does that seem to you like that? You mean they're perceiving it through their acid trip, right?
Yes, I guess so.
And then because of that, because they think they see a sideways sitting sphinx with a candelabra in his mouth, they dose his drink?
Yeah, I mean,
it's sort of a cause and effect thing there.
Yeah, it's if you were walking down the street stoned and a bar was playing Dark Side of the Moon, you would go in there and hang out. And so these guys see a sideways sitting sphinx, and then they go and they waste the rest of their acid to make him also be on acid.
And then plot-wise, huge plot point, what that causes is for him to Sean Penn rambles about the parts of his brain. It's very incoherent. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, if you were a high school health teacher, like this would be more effective in convincing kids not to do drugs than any of your Coronet films or any of that garbage. You just be like, all right, no, I don't. This is not interesting to me anymore. Right. It doesn't sound fun or cool.
But so he trips for 35 hours, seeing expanding flowers, grab-ass gypsies, picture a gypsy, a grab-ass gypsy,
right.
Bingo parlor bivouacs, and images of the people purging payloads of an Su-22. And then he wakes up. He's a day and a half behind schedule, so he sets off again. So great plot point.
Yeah, but at least we got all the color of New Orleans, all that great stuff from a city where a lot of good stuff and fun stuff happens. He ate a plate of calamari there.
Well, if there's not gas bloated corpses, he's not interested in describing anything for you.
So the whole the backstory to this trip is that the Republican National Convention is happening, and Bob is sort of watching this on TV and stuff, and he's going through great efforts to do the thing where you don't address a politician by their name as a sign of disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I like this description. The Mussolini of Mayberry would be fomenting his flock. And that was that just stood out because I bet you did not see this because you're not wasting your precious lives on social media. But did you see what happened with the Mussolini family this past week?
No, I didn't.
This is just worth a sidebar. Mussolini's granddaughter, who's someone that's out there, got into a feud with Jim Carrey. I'm going to read you I'll just read from the article. It all started on Saturday when Jim Carrey, who in recent years has reinvented himself as an anti-Trump political cartoonist, tweeted out a picture of his latest drawing. The graphic sketch showed the elder Mussolini and his mistress Clara Petacci being hanged upside down from a metal girder in Milan after their execution in 1945. If you're wondering what fascism leads to, just ask Benito Mussolini and his mistress Claretta, he wrote. More than 83,000 people had liked it as of Monday morning. But Alessandra Mussolini, a former movie actress and Playboy cover model who is a member of the European Parliament, wasn't one of them. "You are a bastard," she wrote to Carrey on Sunday. And their feud escalated from there. But yeah, Mussolini's granddaughter is out there sniping with Jim Carrey over his drawings of her grandfather.
Wow, what was she mad about? I mean,
I think she was, like, hey, like, that's my grandpappy. He used to bounce me on his knee.
He made the trains run on time. What's your problem?
It's just it's a funny, the idea that Mussolini's granddaughter is out there. I mean, of course, I guess there are heirs there, but she's
so that's a thing that can happen. Yeah, it's like the rumor that went around that turned out not to be true, but it sounds funny. Winston Churchill's parrot just died was a thing.
Oh, yes.
I was like, wow, they do live a long time, but that was completely false. I love that someone would think of that, wake up and go, I'm going to spread a rumor today.
Sure, exactly. Like, spins the wheel, like, historical figure, animal. Like, there we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we get to the point of a complete weird digression that would actually ties into that leaked audio from the beginning. Somewhere out in that twinkly blue sea are whales being treated brutally. Bob is bothered by brutality towards beasts and has never been a hunter of animals. In fact, he despises hunting and hunters. They and their easy kill technologies, their detachment from the kill, from their purpose, from their own primal existence, and their petty thievery enacted against the noble beasts, with one exception. Those who hunt wild boar with their own bodies in a dagger. If you can tell me what purpose that served Kurt Vonnegut, that would be, I'd love to know.
That's a straight line, I'm afraid. That's just a Sean Penn digression.
I guess so.
I mean, I suppose it's, obviously it's supposed to be some irony to the fact that he hates hunters, but he's, killing people. Right. But beyond that, I mean, that's just on the face of it. So.
Yeah.
So now we do have a plot point. Annie is kidnapped, right? She sends a picture of herself bleeding or something.
Yeah, like a picture of her, arm, I think, with the suggestion that she's being held and tortured.
And so he just ponders, I wonder who's doing that. Is it Lewd Star?
Yes.
And so now he has to, I don't know. Now he has to go find her.
Yes, but he thinks she's being held in Miami, which is where he was headed anyway, right?
Yeah.
I guess, yeah. So that worked out well.
Well, it also, I mean, we'll get there, but it comes to absolutely nothing, less than nothing. So,
yeah, but so he travels to Miami, and then he's like sort of wandering around doing his own recon, and he encounters a rally, I guess. And this has some of the things where you can date it to the week he wrote it. Not so much deplorable as the violently immature followers of the violently immature 70-year-old boy man with money and French vanilla cotton candy hair. They appear Aryan-esque with their Yellow Lives Matter banners, and all with yellow blonde hair and eyes of Prussian blue. They chant "Make America More Yellow." And I didn't understand here because, like, clearly orange is the preferred color of the. If you're making Drumpf jokes, like orange is the color of his tiny hands.
Yeah,
like that's the
the fully accepted. Yeah,
the hack term is the one that people are still like replying to on Twitter is. So yeah, that was baffling. I don't know if he just was replying to the wrong thread where some idiot got it wrong, but puzzling.
Yeah, it was to throw us off the track. It was to, who is he talking about here?
Yes, exactly. Wow, yeah. Maybe that was just his lawyer said that was how the Secret Service would be. That was their litmus test.
Right. Well, then a giant explosion, some sort of car bombing.
Yes.
where then he gets into a talk about semtex, which is the explosive. And he describes it here, which I thought, is this from an old magazine ad for semtex? He writes, semtex has potent personality and punch.
Wow,
So-
yeah.
so
that was from the plastic explosive beauty pageant, and that was how they introduced Semtex when it walked on stage.
Yeah. So just him getting, his wedging in his alliteration, and that's what you end up with. Stupid phrases like that. Semtex has potent personality and punch.
Right, and it's very much just a I strapped on a vest and did a helicopter ride in Afghanistan one time, and so that was my takeaway from that.
And this is he suspects this mysterious character. What is it? Amarisa?
Anna Surma, maybe. Anna Surma?
Anna Surma. I didn't look that up. I assume that has some meaning. Did you?
I looked it up. In the book, it says she was like the goddess of exhibitionism, and it seemed like it was more, Wikipedia more said it was like just like the Greek act of like lifting up your skirt and exposing yourself, which is a weird thing to sort of have a term for. But I guess that was, they would build statues where people were doing that. It was a lewd gesture, I guess. It was also sort of like in Braveheart, when they moon everybody, like there was that was the sort of thing as a sign of disrespect.
Oh, okay. I just, come on, Sean Penn, keep it toilet based, would you please? You're losing us with these obscure references.
Well, you do get some toilet-based thing with Anna Surma, believe it or not, and her name does tie into a very strange, I guess, cross that he feels he has to bear. But before we get to that, he goes into the hotel bar. So people have died in the streets. It's a grim scene out there. But he goes into a hotel bar and gets some Russian vodka, and there's a bartender there named El Greco. And he says El Greco switches the bar television channels back and forth between the after blast coverage in front of the hotel and then the party in Cleveland. And I was stunned that Sean Penn had the restraint not to add in. Bob had trouble telling the difference.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. It took a lot of restraint, I guess. Well, he was rushing to get to his the set piece of the whole book, of course, which is her collapsing on the ground. I believe we've come across this already.
We covered that last week, but we didn't know what had set it up.
Yeah.
So we learned what triggers her nearly pooing and then ass piss. Because that was heaves of laughter that were triggering all that. And what provoked that laughter?
Are you from Scottsdale? Bob asks.
All right, we should have probably put a warning there because that's like that we easily could have triggered that same reaction from our listeners. But
coffee nosers in cars all over as we say that.
Just an easy crowd, I suppose. Like we need to work that line into our upcoming live show.
Yeah, and we get a Shatlardian term: several long minutes of her spasmodic laughing.
Oh, wow. I didn't even.
Several long minutes.
I guess it is long if you're, if it's like a, Bugs Bunny sort of like Peter Griffin, like where you're like, it stops being funny and then gets funny again as she's laughing on the floor for that long.
I toyed for a very short second with going on the dark web and trying to see if anyone had recreated that.
Oh, my God.
But yeah, that would have been a lot of fast forwarding in this podcast.
But yeah, so once she recovers, and I presume, I don't know, gives herself a few dabs on her backside with a bar napkin or something.
Can I get the bar rag?
Yeah. She says, I know all about the Scottsdale program. People tell me everything because people like posts, Bob. I am a poster and the third satellite of your syzygy. Syzygy, which
I looked it up and I just didn't. It didn't even occur to me to write it down in the notes. I don't. Who cares?
A conjunction or opposition, especially of the moon with the sun, a pair of connected or corresponding things. The planets were aligned in a syzygy, but so she says that she likes posts and Emma Poster, and I guess that means posting online as in social media.
I don't know what that means. I guess when you connect the words, I'm a poster.
Yeah. And so he goes on to flesh out her character by her saying, with that, Anna Surma excuses herself. I happen to bring my bikini. I'm going to go through the back to the beach and get some late sun and post some selfies until the smoke clears. And he keeps, there's another line right after that so he really thinks he's stumbled onto something here, because she says identity is life. The world has replaced its identity with electronics. You, old man, if you don't mind me calling you that, are from a generation of self-love. Our only self is, well, selfies. So he's doing like his type 5 about selfies here. And I guess if she's called the goddess of exhibitionism, he really thinks that this is like a profundity about the millennial generation, is that they take pictures of themselves. And that's not just a function of them having cameras in their pocket at all times that can do that. It's a deeper seated vanity of our entire generation.
This is this is Pappy coming through. This is get off my lawn kind of stuff here.
Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, man. It's just a way to take pictures, easier than handing your $600 phone to a stranger who might drop it. So that's really all I think about when I do that. Nothing more profound to it than that.
Right. And then he gets into a weird exchange with the Greek, with El Greco, which I didn't understand why El Greco is becoming a character. Did you? I didn't know what to take from that.
No, oh man, there was something else about him. He called him like a hot sock or something, or he had a term for that, a crazy bat or something that made, it had a footnote in it. It was just another one of those pointless things that I looked up, and it was on Urban Dictionary, but that was my takeaway.
I confess at this point there was a little bit of skimming. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, I'm so sorry. But we get the Gabriel's oboe thing, which wasn't that a fanfic? Did that come up as fanfic?
No, that was real. He was sitting on the can looking at the marble and had some musing about that's Morricone. Oh,
that's right. That was my other question. Do you get what is the wordplay on lodestar? I don't get what he's doing there. I know what lodestar is. It just means the North Star or something too.
The only thing, my fan theory, just based on all the other up to the moment hackery, is that there was, time has run together. Sometime in the past year, there was a anonymous New York Times op-ed that was written by a high-ranking government official that was sort of being like, this is it's a disaster in here, folks, and people were trying to puzzle out who had written it, and the thing that some internet detective seized on was that they used the term lodestar in that article, in that op-ed, and then people had tracked down speeches of Mike Pence using it in the past, so the theory was that he had written this.
Okay.
I wouldn't, that seems to me something that is probably what he did. Like, that's a weird theory on my part, but I don't know why else that word would have been on the tip of his tongue.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know that little detail. Okay, so he's just, but the lewd part of it is not, there's no joke or wordplay. He's just changing the word a little bit.
It could be just him speaking in his pidgin English.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, now we get a huge action scene.
Yeah.
We were deprived of that for much. I guess Bob wrapping his house in grandmother's clothesline or whatever was pretty tense and got your pulse going. But this one is this is Sean Penn writing, I don't know, like one of those, like an action book writer. He's writing his movie. This is screenplay style now.
Yeah, absolutely. He got he's into the hotel where he thinks that Lodestar is holding Annie captive. And I would like to, if it's possible, play some sound as I read a passage from it. So he goes into the Marble Palace, and here's what it says. As the man himself sits, it is then that Bob sees the bottom of the man's waistcoat lift, exposing the top band of a grass skirt. Bob catapults into combat. The music takes over Bob's mind, and his mastery of the mallet leaves the lewd star operative on the floor, head cracked open, like a coconut split by a tungsten vise. The ballet has begun. Bob flashes on the surveillance camera above the concierge desk. He's been made. Argicide. No sooner do the first of Lewd Star's troops exit the elevator than Bob dispatches them. Between marble, mallet, and mayhem, Bob is most in his element.
That greatly enhances all of his prose. I think as you read the book, you should just have that in your head or play it out loud in the background. That's good.
It adds some to the madness. I think that is, of course, the music that plays when you get the hammer in Donkey Kong.
I'm just glad that we're back to toilet-based stuff again.
Yep.
I'm going to burn it. As a dumb sentence of the week, but I just want to bring it up now because I have so many more. Let me wipe my butt. That could be my favorite.
Okay. Well, because he was cracking a grizz.
Yes.
Which has footnote 65, which was just taking a shit. And I would have put footnote 66 on that, and I would have called that writing a Bob Honey.
Oh man, this whole section was almost technically unreadable.
Yeah.
He trying to figure out what happens now. What is happening? I guess he's being chased through the building by the grass skirted guys and whacking them all. You know, the weird Mad Magazine sounds happening.
Yes.
Poopity plop plop, blinkety bloom plomp. He's dead. Blood and gore and guts spilling out, and it's like, shut up.
Yeah, he hit Lewd Star with the mallet, and he crumpled to the floor like a bloody bag of smashed asshole. So I didn't understand why that wasn't plural or anything. I wasn't, it was just a weird thing to. It stood out to me.
Yeah, that I had as a dumb sentence as well. Plenty more of those, though. Plenty more. Don't worry.
Yes, there are. I liked that Lewd Star was like he was in the can while the TV was on the guy from Duck Dynasty speaking up at the convention, and I just thought it was just ironic that he was that's being played for laughs as Sean Penn himself is opining from his position of just being a guy who's been on TV as well.
Yeah. Well, we have that sort of gross, there's a lot of gross stuff in here, but there's a ray of sunshine as he goes up to the skylight and he looks through, and I don't want to read this, but a fat man pouncing, puckering, and effing a slender blonde woman. It is Annie, he thinks. His arm draws back, he crashes the mallet through the skylight, sending it shattering glass, and he lands on the bed with them, and then it's not Annie.
No, it's it just the whole thing it builds up to him crashing in on a completely unrelated pair of people.
Yeah, completely unrelated, and we do get a little bit of. I started to see 1960s Batman in this. Has he stumbled upon the towering titan of treachery?
Yeah, that goes in well with the onomatopoeias that he's been tossing around.
Yeah,
plop plop and all that ones you just said.
Yeah. So that's just a red herring. He goes on a giant killing spree. I mean, I guess it is Lewd Star, right? It's supposed to be him, but it's not Annie, and he doesn't have Annie, so.
No, it ends with him getting shot in the head.
Yeah, he gets shot directly in the head, and warm blood escaping, the perfect circular puncture behind his ear, pooling, cooling, coagulating like hot jello on the marble deck. So Bob's dead.
Hot jello. That's not something you encounter very often.
No. So Bob is dead, and then we get a poem.
Yeah, we do. And my standout line in this one was, it was all terrible, but would his body be poked and prodded or simply left to rot? Then his recall brought back the words of Egypt's own Sadat, which is just from a rhyming standpoint one of the worst things in the book so far. But I don't know what the words are he's meant to echo, but it says, "I will die, I will die, I will die, knowing death is not my foe, but not 1 second sooner, sir, than when my God says it's so."
I didn't bother to look up whether Anwar Sadat actually said those words. I don't think it matters. I guess I don't care all that much.
Sure. That's not one of those quotes you find inscribed on a throw pillow in an Airbnb type of thing.
No. When we stay at a Nashville house, it has Nashville in lights, and then it has that hanging on the wall.
Yeah, maybe we just haven't looked close enough, and there's a little thing that says Anwar Sadat underneath the live, laugh, love inscription.
Right. And then we get this terrible sentence: in less an oddity of adjudication than a predictability of political obfuscation and skullduggery, Bob was never charged with a crime. So at this point, we believe that he's dead. So yeah, I guess, he's not going to be charged with a crime because he's dead.
Right.
But then we learn he had a neurocranial injury, and it was relatively superficial.
One of those.
So in sort of vague prose, we learn that Bob is still around.
Yeah, very unfortunate.
Yeah. And it was that point my hopes were up that there was just going to say epilogue and it was going to be a terrible poem. But no.
Nope, we get Station 14, which is called Debunking Camus. Which it's a short chapter. I don't know if you've read Camus. I read The Stranger like 2 years ago because there's a band I like that talks about and references Camus, and so I was like, I'll give it a shot. And it was like, I think the time of my life has passed where I needed to pick up what Camus was putting down. It sort of struck me as like a French Catcher in the Rye type of book.
Yeah, I read it too, and it was good to help you understand the sort of the ennui of the time, man unmoored from his meaning or any purpose, and so that was kind of it was an interesting read. It didn't do much for me.
Sure, but good thing you read it now before it was debunked.
Fully debunked. Watch Sean Penn destroy Albert Camus.
So at this point, like the terrible sentences that make no sense, there were so many of them. I just singled out occasional ones for sharing, but this started off the chapter. Rarefied resins liquefied during a life languishing, unloved, were beginning to create new free radical initiation of polymerization.
Go so to hell, Sean Penn. Go to hell. There's a point where you can't even understand the tense of words that he's using. In the middle of it, you have to stop and say, wait, what? Rarefied resins liquefied during a life languishing unloved, were beginning to create new free. Like, it takes you 3 reads, and I'm just not willing to do that anymore. I can't do it.
Not at all. It's because you'd have to look up stuff, like you'd have to look up what free radicals are, and then polymerization. Like, yeah, it's and that's how the chapter starts. Like that is what the hook is.
Well, he gets much more clear with his dreams, desert, daylight, diffusion, dictated disturbances in the void of visual detail.
Oh,
there's one where the word, is it desert or is it deserting as the verb desert? His dreams, desert, daylight, diffusion, dictated disturbances. I'm not doing the work, Penn.
Yeah,
I'm not.
Just the fact that we did have such a prominent desert scene earlier, maybe it means it ties in. But
yeah, and he describes the desert around it, but it doesn't make any sense in that context. So I don't know. Why am I looking for sense at this point?
But what is happening here is that he's sort of in a hospital room, drifting in and out of consciousness, I guess, as they're playing the Democratic National Convention on the TV. People are speaking. He's musing thoughts about that whole thing. And there's an orderly coming in to sort of attend to him. And the orderly gets off a great line where as he leaves the room, the orderly utters, "Every war we've ever lost has been somebody else's civil war." And so I think we joked about this earlier, that the book was on par with Axl Rose's "What's So Civil About War Anyway," and they actually went and pretty much said that right here in the book.
Right. Yeah. What's so funny about peace, love, and understanding, I guess. But we get a mention of, and they're coming up, but we get Hillary and Obama as well.
Yeah,
who was described as Chi-Town Kenyan Kansan. Can. That was the
Wow.
sentence. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know what his, you know, it comes up later too, because the book sort of ends with his just like not even pretending to be anything other than a screed. But it's so easy for if you're Sean Penn to get a to get the Huffington Post to give you a front page story just to post your thoughts. Like it's not it's not something you have to pull a lot of strings to do. Like why couldn't you just have done that?
Yeah, I just wondered why he didn't go on Bill Maher's show a lot more or something. That's the same. I mean, it is not crafted. It's not. That's what Bridget was. I read her a little bit of it. She's like, "Oh God, that's so terrible. It sounds so awful now." Too, like she had the obvious reaction to it. But that's what she said. Go on a TV show and just say it. I mean, this is not this is not a novel. A novel does not make.
No. And yeah, I guess maybe like you said of the Camus, it will be a snapshot into the window, but hopefully it's not the snapshot that people think that people are actually talking like this or thinking like this.
All I can say is take us away, Phil Ox.
He before he wakes up, I guess he recites the Pledge of Allegiance to us, which gets footnote 69, which is the Pledge of Allegiance was written by a socialist in 1892. The version above specifying the United States in 1923, and not until 1954 were the words "under God" added in response to the communist threat. So he's essentially going like full Reddit commenter here.
Yeah, he's not even pretending to make the footnotes be something that's artistic, or he's just.
Yeah. Again, he's like the ones about the military stuff. He's almost has left in the Wikipedia bracket and citation number on them from copying and pasting them. But yeah, he lies back on the bed, pulls an iPod from the bed tray, ears up, and presses play. And Phil Ox's voice is what we get played out of the very short chapter of.
Was it really that wise to lean so heavily on Phil Ox? Is that? I mean, just in terms of audience familiarity, I don't know. When we're trying to figure out at Riff Tracks, like, is this going to land? We're going live in front of a bunch of people, and we're going to do a Phil Ox joke. You guys ready?
Yeah.
You think that's going to hit? I would give it the thumbs down. I'd say let's find someone else.
But this would be like if you were like, we were doing Octoman, and then it's like, hey, that guy looks like Phil Ox, and the audience doesn't laugh at all. And then you look down at the paper, and the next 2 minutes of movie are just dedicated to making deep cut Phil Ox jokes. Yeah. And you're like,
tugging at the collar there.
Unless it does, get funny to the audience that no one's laughing. It's not a winning strategy.
No. So he heads back. Well, no, he gets driven in his ambulance. Are we there yet? No, wait. Station 15.
Station 15. I lost my place here. Station 15 was called Just a Little Kiss. And yeah, he's being driven to a old folks home, ironically. And he's talking about some weird thought he's having on the process here that I thought was funny. Was that our new America revealed? Was that the reveal of our humiliated sun, S-U-N, intrinsically casting flaming hands to cover the fiery crotch of our country cringing? The vehicle passes under the shade of an old oak and onward to a halt. And so I just imagined like the Raisin Bran mascot son, doing the hands over crotch thing, like when someone opens the door and he's changing in there. That gave me a brief shimmer of hope as I read this final chapter.
Yeah, well, that was one of the passages that I knew that Sean Penn was laughing out loud as he wrote it.
He does laugh a lot when he writes.
But then he brings us to a couple of descriptions of the area, and he describes a potted plant. And he says Capria folicae.
Oh, my God.
Which I looked up, and I just said, say honeysuckle, you unbearable ass.
Wow.
And then later prosopagnosia. Say face blindness, you unbearable ass. Why is he doing this? Did you know prosopagnosia? Prosopagnosia?
No. I mean, I've heard of face blindness, and maybe would have. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But honeysuckle, huh? Get it?
Yeah.
sort of ties it all up.
I sure do.
His last name.
Yeah.
God.
Yep.
I've never heard of honeysuckle being kept inside either. To just make another point about that. I like this one because we got some Kleinian text as he was entering in. He says, grabbing his 2 suitcases, he moves slowly toward a building of indescribably faded color. The next sentence. A color not unlike those of Irish walls painted in the rain. You just said it was indescribable. And like I was going to be fine with that, but then you had to go on and describe it in the next sentence, and then not in a good way, like a impossible to envision description. I don't know.
I get it. We're all getting a little edgy as we get towards the end here. Here's I got a little edgy over this one. He checks in. There's a girl there. He thinks he recognizes. Of course, we know who it is. But he says, she says, "What's name, please?" And he says, "Goat, Gruff Goat." And she says, "Let me get you sorted, Mr. Goat." And let me rewrite that for you, Sean. Can I help you, sir? Yes, my name is Goat, Gruff Goat. Get the hell out of here. I'm serving the next person. When you want to behave, you can come back up to this counter. But until then, you sit down and shut your mouth, and I'm going to take care of this guy. There, I rewrote it for you, Sean.
Right. That's much better. Much more realistic.
So it is, of course, Annie. And Bob goes into his room. And Sean, I think, is attempting here, and I found this amazing. I think he's attempting actual pathos or tenderness or something. There's a tear on Bob's cheek. It's better now, says Annie, or I'm better now, Annie. The beautiful girl leans in and gives him a kiss, and then he hears her footsteps patter away. And I just thought, like, how dare you?
Right.
This is not happening, buddy. Stop this right now.
Yeah, not earned. Not a person. Not not someone who has been resembled a human in any other sense, and we're not supposed to even identify their relationship because everyone is so cartoonish and weird, and we're not even sure if any of this is happening.
Right.
But yeah,
I would have bought it if Bob was squeezing out a grizz on the thunder bucket or whatever,
right,
and slowly crying. Then I would have been like, okay, now you're on familiar ground.
Sure. But when he's left alone in his room with the tear running down his cheek, he looks out the window and sees Spurley Coultier, who's sitting in a bangin' black 85 Buick Grand National, which he goes into a sort of long description of how it's like the fastest car they made that year and could really, like, if you put a turbo on it and nitrous injected, it could really smoke some Porsche or something like that. And apropos of nothing, I looked it up and it was a very ugly car. It was just a very boxy, like 80s vibe. So I'm not sure what weird attachment he has to that car, but he was so specific about it that he made me look it up. So now I'm insulting it. So mission accomplished, Sean.
So well done, Sean.
Yeah.
That was another instance of, okay, you look out, you notice it, and then is he saying this all in his own head? Like, oh, I remember that's the fastest assembly line car ever built, 0 to 60. Right. Like, what is the purpose of this? And it turns out there is zero purpose. It's Sean Penn saying, again, cornering you at a bar, and then he happens to mention, it's a good car. It's almost as good as a car I had. It's a blah, 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 and then has to describe it to you. Like, he has to get it out of his brain. Like, there was no reason to put this in the book. None whatsoever.
Yeah, just a neuron fired, and a paragraph later, here we are.
Right.
But Spurley is out there, and of course Bob is suspicious of him and whether he's there to do him ill will. But we discovered that Bob fortunately has a talent that has heretofore been unmentioned, but we have 3 pages left, so we might as well give him another superpower. He says, with Bob's nearly cosmic ability to read lips, did he quietly chant aloud in perfect harmony with the movement of Spurley's mouth mantra. So we knew he could listen to someone writing and tell what they were writing, but he can also read lips perfectly from a great distance. So,
and what is Spurley's mouth mantra?
Please inform me. I did not write it down.
Chinese boogie dancers and pale-headed priests, vodka and tonic, life may be deceased, but I still know what's cooking in the oven, and man, I know the beast. That's what guys do, and they sit in their car alone, about to go on a assignment to murder someone in an old folks' home. That's what they say, in case you were wondering.
So I'm imagining Spurley being like Cameron and Ferris Bueller when he's sitting in the car talking to himself and like punching the seat next to him. Like, all right, he'll keep calling me. He'll keep calling me Chinese boogie dancers.
Right.
But I looked up Chinese boogie dancers. And so, yeah, this is pure Penn. This is not a Phil Ochs song or anything like that.
I looked it up, too. I thought it was that German scream band that he had been quoting before, but I could not find it anywhere. So, yeah,
Yep.
it just leads back to Penn.
Yeah.
So what do you do when Bob sees that Spurley is coming to do away with him? We have no idea why or who Spurley is or who he's working for, or I guess we can assume that he's just from the organization or whatever, from the Scottsdale program. So what does he do? He heads into a typewriter and he types out a long incoherent threat to the president of the United States.
Yeah, so this is where I was like, honestly, like, the Huffington Post or the Times op-ed would have let you publish this, if you had just like asked. But it's incoherent, and I have to imagine cathartic, but it has some lines in it that we're going to need to share. It's unfortunate, but we have to. This is what we're here to do. The first one I noted was, "A million women so dwarfed your penis edency." Is that how you would pronounce that?
Penesidency?
Penesidency. On the streets of Washington and around the world on the day of your piddly inauguration, unprecedented spelling okay. So sure, we've got a penesidency, but then I think the other part, unprecedented spelling okay, again, I spend too much time looking at this garbage. You're a lucky person to not. But I think the last part is in reference to a misspelling in a tweet.
It must be. Yeah, I assumed that was. Yeah,
probably 14 months ago, like a specific day. So I think that's a lot of people like opt to spend their lives replying to those tweets and making similar jokes. But Sean Penn prefers to wait 14 months till you've forgotten them and then pretty much do the exact same thing.
Well, I'm sure if the president does read this, he is stung by being called a gasconade and cache of catchphrases is limiting and reflexive, escalate the emasculation of you by a world whose patience is in nuclear peril. Burn, send him to the burn ward after that.
It is too bad that this would never happen, because it would be, if it was a more normal situation where, like, the president was someone that was still appearing on talk shows, it would be a funny bit to have him read this. That would be very funny.
Right.
Just because no one would have any idea what he was talking about, but it would be funny just to even, hear some attempts at some of these sentences. But after that, it has some part that, he challenges the. I think he pretty much calls for an assassination, which was
he does. He explicitly. That is
a bold step.
That is very bold.
Maybe that's why he couldn't do it on the Huffington Post. Like, I don't know. Maybe Penguin Publishing's or Etria Books. Their lawyers were a little more liberal with this sort of thing. But yeah, bold.
It is. Putting it in writing yikes. I believe that there's been news stories about people who do it, obviously, on social media constantly, and sometimes they hit the news. And one fact keeps coming up is that they have to investigate anything that comes before them that they notice. They have to investigate it. So, so Sean Penn, you at least earned yourself a cursory examination, and I'm sure without contacting them, they probably just went, "All right, he's a nut. Let's leave him alone."
They're like, yeah, we want to investigate this, but really, the chapter's called Big Cock.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of things here at the Secret Service, but oh man,
Wilson, I've got an assignment for you today.
Right.
Wow, that looks like a slim volume. I'm sure I'll get through this in no time. 17 hours later, he's cursing in his office.
Yeah. He went through the roughest training Quantico has to offer, and this is what broke him. But it ends with this. This was his sign off. Sir, I challenge you to a duel. Tweet me, bitch. I dare you. Which, like, even as I just wrote down, no adults stepped in to intervene here. Like, no one at the publishing company, like none of the people in his life were like.
Yeah, you're coming off like Sex Man circa 2008. You might
right. My review of Bob Honey, who just do stuff. Yeah, that was pretty good. Wow. Yeah. So, and then his Bob's own response to his own writing of "Tweet me, bitch, I dare you." A near indiscernible smile comes to Bob's face, as if for the first time he'd been gently touched by the hand of God. God himself issued his own firm settle down to that statement. Sir, you know nothing of my work.
Yes. I happen to have God right here.
And oh man, it gets to a point where he's no longer writing his letter to the president. He just has but he's still spewing some just of Bob's own thoughts. And I don't even know if it's something I want to read. Lest people isolate these words and use them when I run for governor in a decade.
Yeah, I'm not going to say them. I'm not. I leave it to you.
Come on, say them.
There's a lot of them together. But I think
say the ethnic slurs. Come on.
But before that, we're explicitly being called sheeple again.
Oh yeah.
It's you, the most arrogant, ill, and unqualified electorate in the history of the Western world. That's us. Sean Penn is looking at us. So right. I'm pretty sure that I'm the sheeple again. Dang it. That's
sheeple has been. There's like 4 of them in the book.
Yeah, we've been sheepled a number of times in this.
I don't know what term would have like made me. I mean, I guess if there actually was, if he had gone to the Kofifi well that many times, that would have been more surprising. But I wish we had put a sheeple counter guess over under on the first time it popped up.
That's right.
I would have gone under. I would not have assumed he would have gone back to that well.
Well, we get that screed, but then luckily we're quickly back to verbal comedy here, Marx Brothers style, Algonquin Round Table joking when he comes up to the girl at the counter and says, "Would you let me lick a stamp?" A stamp, the girl asks in her adorable accent. A postage stamp? You mean like for a mailbox mail? So she turned into Bob Honey for a moment when he doesn't understand simple phrases that people and then muses about them out loud. But the other thing about that, her adorable accent?
Yeah.
I forgot Annie's, what's her provenance? Where I thought
not
did we know
untold.
She was,
yeah.
Okay.
No. And I think that some like later on, like a paragraph later, it mentions the drawl too. So it did seem to come out of nowhere. I don't know if it was because we're still not sure if this is going to be, Annie or not, or if he's hallucinating, or if she now has an accent suddenly. But nope, I hadn't noticed it before.
Yeah.
The other thing about her confusion after Bob, tears 3 from a roll, licks each one, enjoying as if they were grape lollipops, and affixes them to the envelope. So this is what you rewrote her reaction when you called her gruff goat checking in. I'm going to rewrite this one.
Okay.
Would you let me lick a stamp? Sir, you haven't had to lick a postage stamp in like 15 years. Let me look that up. Oh, no. The U.S. Postal Service had pretty much phased out lickable stamps in favor of self-adhesive ones since 2002. So I do have stamps for residents available at cost, but you do not have to lick them. Why are you licking them? I just said you don't have to lick them. Get out of our retirement home.
Yeah, Bob would not be welcome anywhere. Let's be upfront about that. El Greco would have thrown him out many months before. You are not welcome back here, sir, ever.
And I think that's sort of he goes back to his room after he mails this letter, and sort of fades away as he's like we're waiting to see what's going to happen. Like the book ends.
Well, his last act is to send all his money to the ASPCA.
Yeah. So that was something that happened at the very beginning. He had all the $1 bills because that was how you pay Lewd Star's operatives. But then he put $101 bills or 1,000 in an envelope. I guess he has more of them.
Oh, okay. I just forgotten that fact. Again, the plot was not central to my.
No, it didn't really register. Spurley came in and like I guess had traced that. It was like you need to be more careful when you're mailing your stuff. But yeah, he I guess he's just an animal lover at heart, which unless you're a wild boar owner.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so we assume. I mean, I just assumed this is sort of an ironic, like Bob. Yeah, he fades away. Spurley comes in and kills him, and that's the end of the book. Because you look ahead and there's just an epilogue with a dumb poem. So I thought, all right, well, I guess I got to struggle through that. But then that takes quite a turn, then, doesn't it?
Yeah. So he goes into a little poem that is one of the worst things that's ever been written by a human, but it ends up resolving the plot within it. But let's share some choice excerpts from the epilogue poem.
Yes, please.
It's sort of we read part of it on the fan fiction segment last time, and it goes along with a lot of this stuff turned up in the early reviews of it just because they are the of the moment things that really have no bearing on the story or anything like that he chose to include. But he starts off with at the Mandalay in Vegas, so much terror, death, and shock, little men made big by legal bump fire stock.
Ugh.
We're not going to, if that, we're going to do on the scale. So that was 1 out of 5. But this is what we're going to get is current events, tragedies sort of rendered into this Andrew Dice Clay, like hickory dickory dock,
right?
type of poem. Just really bad rhyme scheme and really infantilizing.
Help me out with this one. I'm not sure I understand it. Sexual misdoings awakening a rage. Net picks recasts readers hiding its cabal with the slick Ted turn of a page.
I'd ask the same thing. Any idea? Let's puzzle it out.
Ted Turner, was he accused of something, or if so, it passed, and I don't know. But
Netflix is supposed to be Netflix.
I guess I don't know.
Slick Ted turn of it had too much going on for me to hit. But yeah, I don't know anything about Ted Turner. I didn't know if it was like a TED talk, but Ted Turner's not involved in Netflix. I don't know that it has a cabal. It would have been great if he was like, if he had made a Netflix Quickster joke circa 2009. That could have redeemed the whole endeavor.
Then he would have gone up to Annie and asked her to mail his Netflix back to.
That could have tied it into American Psycho. He was always trying to return some videos. We have Puerto Ricans catching hand towels, but they have no home nor light. So let's all just be loving. No need to scream and fight.
Oh, that's pretty high on the scale.
I was just like trying to figure out like what he could have done that would have just been even more offensive. Just like, a nation of Kickstarters looking for backers. Sandy Hook was faked by crisis actor, like that type of like Sean, please, no, like
yeah, man. As we said, I think last time, invoking these huge things that bring up a lot of obviously these giant social things and so many elements to him, and him just playing around with it, putting little bad poems in between his poop scenes. It's like minds and hearts, Sean. You're really winning minds and hearts.
Right. And then so in order to do that, he goes on to the one we quoted last time. Are you out there, Louis C.K.? Once Crucial's conversations kept us on her toes. Was it really in our interest to trample Charlie Rose? And that was like, choose your battles, man. Like, I'm not sure what again, in terms of winning over the hearts and minds, this is probably not the thing to do. Like, I'm sure he was buddies with at least one of those guys, but like, it has nothing to do with anything here.
Yeah. Stepping up to okay. Let's get a picture of this Sean Penn. Who does he hang around with? Louis C.K. and Charlie Rose. Okay.
Right. Just boozing it up and I guess talking about how they've been unfairly maligned. He goes on then, so we've gotten the shooting in Vegas, Puerto Rico hurricane, Louis C.K. Whipping it out, and then what's the next battle he chooses? Net neutrality, no more. Have we all become the big man's whore? And I was just like, oh, sure. I don't know. He's just thumbing through things like, yeah, I'll toss that one in. Like, may as well get a net neutrality jibe in there. People have probably forgotten all about that.
Is he just looking at this day in history on the web or something and going, yeah, I'll still jam this in here too?
Sure. Remember Scaramucci? That was a weird week, huh? That guy, right? That was okay. Moving on. Net neutrality.
Then, of course, I think we read already the Me Too movement. He takes that on.
Yeah, exactly. They had a good run.
Another good stance. But then, is he referencing himself for real here when he says, I'm a hero to Time magazine? Saying I'm. I just wondered, did Time magazine do a story on him or something right around the time that he was describing these other things? But I didn't look that up.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was probably they probably had a Women's March story on the front cover or something that was, I don't know. I'm not sure why they would single him out. But
I see. You think it's referring back to okay, that probably makes sense.
I think so. I mean, otherwise there's probably not a Time magazine. If he's railing against selfies from his porch, he probably is also still getting Time magazine. So
right. And then he takes on Scientology, and there's a specific thing that I also didn't look up, but padlock wives inside a cupboard? Is that an official stance of Scientology? I don't know.
Oh, I haven't watched any of the stuff that's recently come out about Scientology. I just felt like it was sort of a story that they weren't gonna tell me anything I already didn't probably already know or suspect, so I haven't really watched it. But if they're padlocking people up in cupboards, maybe I need to get in on this, because on watching it, not on the whole Scientology. But hey, if that's the sort of reveal that's happening, that's more interesting than I assumed it would have been.
It just seems like that maybe was a detail. Once again, he just had the TV on and Leah Remini, told a story about it or something, and so he put it in his poem.
Right. Yeah. I guess it's better not to give him any credit for imagination. This is all clearly stuff that happened during this specific six week period he was working on this. So
it happened here on Earth, or as I call it, Sagan's precious dot turned tawdry on its axis. Sagan's precious dot. I've never heard that one before.
That's a good one. Yeah. He was really precious to the Earth. Yeah. It's he really. What a dork. And yeah, so then as the poem is sort of listing the current events of mid 2018, he does take a break late 2017 is probably when he was writing this. But it goes into describing plot events. It's sort of it shifts the tone and the tense.
Smash cut too. Oh, one last thing of the moment was the Hawaiians felt the drill.
Oh yeah.
So yeah. I didn't look it up, but we could know the exact. Obviously, we know the exact day and minute that he did it.
Right. Yeah, that was a big one. And yeah, I don't think Sean Penn has a social media presence, but he's clearly plugged into the minutia day of topics, that everyone sort of gets their jokes in and moves on.
Right. So smash cut to plot again, and Spurley's coming in to kill him.
Yeah, he's coming in and still rhyming the whole thing, and he's asking if they know where Bob Honey is, but surprise, surprise, it says the passage I took down was, but underneath the counter unseen had the voice really come thrown so clean from Annie, completely bald and in underwear and body so supple and lean.
Mm-hmm.
So Annie is first. Oh, so Bob is laying down sort of with his face on the desk, I guess, taking a nap. And he's done the Scooby-Doo thing of taking Annie's costume, which he fits into surprisingly well. And so she is then underneath the desk in her underwear, bald and supple and lean. So we're getting some weird, alluring details thrown in really on the last page of the book.
Well, it's an interesting time to learn that Annie is a bald foreigner of some kind. We learn we had so many pages to tell us these interesting details of her. That she wears a wig.
Oh, well, yeah, she had alopecia in the beginning of the book, remember?
Oh, I didn't even remember that.
God, well, it wasn't important. It wasn't
Okay,
at all. But that was why he got too much Vietnam next time, that sort of thing. Like he gave that detail.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's a huge plot, and I just missed it. I confess.
Well, it was a month ago. But yeah, and then so he gets this detail. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, that blonde girl is Bob in a wig! Exclamation mark. And so, yeah, Bob has sort of like sprung up with the reveal, almost Norman Batesian, and he's about to whack Spurley on the head with his hammer, and Spurley gets a fitting for how much time we've spent hawking a grizz in this book, how much time we've spent staring at the wall while on the toilet. Spurley goes out in a dignified manner.
Spurley, yeah, you think does he get he gets hit on the head and then has some last words like I lived, I did what I could, I leave this earth clean of all darkness. That is not how it goes.
Or even does the cliched, tell my wife I love her, like, might tell my grandchildren to live their best life, and that I will see them again. I know in my heart that I will. No, Spurley concusses like a canvas. Its skin splayed from its easel, drops a load in his dewy drawers, spreading a sewery stench of diesel. So it's like Dr. Seuss, writing in Jackass or something.
He coughs up his gas-bloating guts, bends over desk, and dies.
I mean, so it made me laugh with a few lines to go. But, Sean Penn, surprisingly more of a fan of taking dumps for the sake of humor than I would have given him credit for.
Yeah, he is. He does have his little obsessions. There's no doubt about it. But that about we're getting to the end. I don't have anything more on his last.
Well, yeah, I mean, unless there is a final post-credit thing where like someone walks into the nursing home and they've discovered that the sewery diesel has trickled out of Spurley's dewy drawers and has like onto a stack of printer paper, and they pick it up, and then it cuts to them bringing it into the Random House office, and then handing it to him, and then they publish it without any alterations, and it's Bob Honey who just do stuff. That could be that again would have redeemed the whole endeavor.
Right. But
weird. Yeah, it ends.
It's weird. We just put it into the copier, and this is what came out.
It was like how you write in lemon juice and it disappears, then you bake it and it reveals the message. Like could have been that with except with feces. But yeah, it ends with so Annie is sort of shrieking or whatever. Spurley has crapped his pants and died, and Bob Honey, a being unbranded, unbridled, and free. And I just wish it had taken a page from Jim Tice and just added in all caps, "Long live the king."
Did you have any theories on, Bob's or Sean Penn's hatred is pretty clear in some of his targets. Other times a little fuzzier with his hate of chimeras. And didn't she was crapping as she died as well? Uh-huh. Pretty much everybody's dropping the deuce. But I didn't get a picture of why he hated that. I mean, I guess some sort of shrieking party girl he was trying to. But who's Spurley? Because he clearly hates this. Or is he sort of an amalgamation? Is he just a branded dude or something? That he's directing, Sean Penn is directing his clear loathing at. I couldn't figure out who the analog was in real life.
Yeah, I suppose since he is in theory, on his face is a reporter, it could be just like the media type of disdain. But I'm not sure who we're meant to envision, because in my mind he was just one of those guys with like the press card in his hat, sort of taking notes. And but I guess if we're meant to believe he is a assassin from either the government or the Scottsdale Project, there is no real analog to that in Sean Penn's life. So
Yeah, I suppose that makes the most sense to just take it on its face. It is just the press, and they are like murderers trying to get stuff out of him and trying to figure out who Sean Penn is, and it's just like, leave me alone, man. I'm free and unbranded.
Right. Yeah, unbranded except for the 1.8 collective star rating on Amazon. That is a bigger brand, I think, than you could have ever asked for if you tried to more defines you more than any Instagram selfie ever would, I would say.
Yes. Oh, well, summing up.
Yeah.
What are your big grand thoughts about this?
My grand thoughts are that it definitely delivered. People had not just criticized this book because it was written by a celebrity that it wasn't just like, oh, what a dumbass, like he wrote a book. It was as bad as people made it out to be. Whether it was as bad in a fun way as some of the other books we've read, I do not think. I think that it was a lot harder to get through. There was parts that were harder to understand. There were parts that were hilarious, of course, but
yeah, I mean, when I wasn't laughing, I was scratching my head a little bit.
But on the back of the book, there was a sticker because I bought it used, and it says Bob Honey, who just do stuff a novel, used, very good. And I would dispute that assessment of the condition of this book is my takeaway.
Yeah, I wonder, giving our books away, is that going to be a chore? Will anyone sign up for this? I don't know.
Yeah. So we give away these books once we're done with them on Patreon to subscribers, randomly picked. So if you're interested in getting it, keep in mind, mine is, I got all my notes in it. I'll sign it for you, but it's also signed by Sean Penn. So that's a real keepsake.
Pappy himself.
Yeah. It's on a book plate, so he didn't actually hold this book in his hands, but it'll be a conversation piece. I had it out on the coffee table on Wednesday and had to explain to people that I was reading it for this purpose and not just keeping it conspicuously out so readers would see it and think I was well read.
Yeah, I had the exact same experience, and then the friend who saw it comically would not believe that I was not just reading it for my own enjoyment. So I had to go produce the book I was actually reading. No, really, I'm reading this. Uh-huh.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because at least the Dwight David Thrash book no one would have even questioned what was going on unless they were like, I've never seen a book that size. What's going on with that? Right. This makes you look like an utter douche.
Yeah. Well, I have nothing to add in my overall summation. I think I don't think there's anything under the surface that we haven't discussed already. It's just a lot of ugliness is what I took away from it. Just, a chore to read through so much gross stuff, and to read such a bitter worldview is just tough to read at length.
Yeah.
Even when he is really adding the comedy like that, it's still it's harsh stuff. And there's nothing wrong with if you're writing a book about a grim time, about sort of reflecting that. But I just think that, yeah, the willful, like, sort of just like middle finger to the reader constantly throughout the book is the main takeaway here. Like, there's no just contempt oozes off the pages. Yeah, clearly there's a biting satire has been done well many times and can be enjoyable, and so there is a good version, as we've said before, of this, but this is not it, clearly. No. But we had a lot of readers write in with their thoughts sort of as this wrapped up, so I think we should probably, so we don't have any fan fiction, we'll read a few more emails this time. We're going to the party, we're going to the game, we're going to the disco, we're going to cruise out, man. Stealing people's mail! Stealing people's mail! What do you got? Well, these people all took a typewriter out. They wrote us a letter, and then they licked a self-adhesive stamp and mailed it off to us, and then they died from whatever toxic effect that would have on your system. So they're the emails from people who have taken the time to register their thoughts about Sean Penn. The first one is from Sharon. So I am to understand that this horror of a book could have been avoided if Sean Penn had just done what he clearly originally wanted to do and had written a strongly worded letter to the editor about Donald Trump. Ugh. Not to mention that when I got to the sentence in the acknowledgments, without the above, this novel would not be. I immediately thought that the clearest proof of the impossibility of time travel yet is the fact that this book did in fact come to be.
because I might bump that just slightly ahead of the usual let's kill Hitler thing.
Oh, yeah. So clearly people are on the same wavelength as us.
Yeah. This one is from Joshua, and it's this is an interesting thing. A guy wrote a book, Grigner the Accordion, a retelling of the Eye of Argon. And I guess the goal here was sort of like, hey, there might be the bones of something good here. I'm going to rewrite it and see what I can do. So he read the book. He said he's not normally a reader of Conan type stories, so I'm probably not the best judge of it on its own merits, but it seems, well, competent. It takes the main concepts of the Eye of Argon and tweaks and polishes them until they're probably close to what Jim Tice would have hoped to write. With one major exception, 16-year-old Jim Tice would probably not have cared for this version's near total lack of horniness. No making love well or sagging nipples or outcropping breasts, but a version of Carthena that is a skilled and driven secondary lead. So if that sounds intriguing to you, Argon without the outcropping breasts, maybe give Grigner the Accordion a shot.
Is it a full-length book? Do we know?
Yeah, I'm not sure about if he really expanded beyond the 12,000 words of Eye of Argon, but it is on Amazon. So it's could be worth checking out if you want more of the Tice verse.
I certainly do myself. Could be my next book.
Speaking of Amazon self-published books, Christopher, upon finishing the current book, I decided to check out the Kindle preview of the misleadingly titled Bob Honey Who Just Does Stuff by Sean Shawn Penn. We discussed this in the first episode. The entirety of the first page is, "You're bisected," followed by the second page, "I'm sorry, that's how you are." The next two half-filled pages of the brief preview are Bob Honey saying how he likes to hang out with my split personality and describing a hypothetical conversation with a woman who doesn't like a guy at work who clicks his pen. It seems like a bizarre grift on every level, from the title and author to the empty page space to the weird perspective of the main character talking directly to me as a character. And I think I like it far more than Sean's Penn's book. At the very least, the preview contains 0 sex toys with candles in them.
Oh, wow. So this person actually, I assumed it was, ipsum lorem or something in there.
Yeah, no, I guess they actually, came up with a few words to justify their performance art piece.
They did their version of Metal Machine music, just kind of. Nice.
Yeah, so that guy has probably, earned $25 from people getting that book. Andrew writes in, "If art is anything that elicits a reaction, then Bob Honey is definitely a piece of art. I've never been more angry at a piece of media. I finished the book last night and I'm still mad. I walked into the office today and a couple of coworkers were having a conversation. I don't know what about, but the first words I heard one of them say was Sean Penn."
No.
Without even thinking, I raised my hand and said, "No, just no," which meant that I had to explain to them why I did that, which meant reliving the trauma. I involuntarily shut down any mention of Sean Penn with an earshot. That's how bad this book is.
What in the world were people talking about Sean Penn for?
I don't know. Maybe they had just watched the Angry Birds movie and were impressed by his voice acting. We've got another one from Chris. Like many, I found that this one was painful to read in a way that 64 Squares wasn't. Whereas 64 Squares did get tedious with the repetition, I at least found the repetition funny on some level and felt like I wanted to keep going to see if anything was ever going to actually happen. With Bob, the weaponized alliteration is funny at first, but when you realize that every sentence of every chapter is going to have this bloated verbiage to say otherwise very simple and often stupid things, it loses its entertainment value pretty quickly. Add to that the unreliability of the narrator, the immorality of the narrator, the constant uncertainty about whether the reader is supposed to sympathize with the character or even care about the character or believe anything he says or not, and it makes the reading this story a very conscious, forceful decision. In a way that you have to consciously decide to force yourself to do some very unpleasant thing that you hope, but you're not sure will be worth it in the end. So I did finish it just to see where Mr. Penn was going, and although I'm mostly glad I did, I still can't say for sure what he wanted me to think about the whole thing. I don't know if Bob is real or dead or alive or not, or if any of the events Bob described actually happened or not, and sadly, I can't say I care all that much.
That is perfectly said. I think that is my thoughts too. I would take issue with one thing. I don't think that we're ever supposed to sympathize with the character at all, right? I mean, he is so repulsive and ugly and morally warped and everything. There's no way.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I guess, the fact that he is alone and, doesn't have a human connection with anybody, like in perhaps we're, meant to be like the Elephant Man or something like that. But no, at least the Elephant Man had a good heart.
Yeah, I mean, what's his name? Confederacy of Dunces.
Tool, yeah, John Kennedy Tool.
Yeah, but the main character.
Ignatius.
Ignatius J. Riley. I mean, he's fairly repulsive, but it's a comic character, pretty broad, and so that you sympathize with his irritations and things like that. It's not like, oh God, I can't read another word of this.
Right, exactly. You're making him laugh. Although I always find by the end of that story, I'm rooting for him to go down, just because he's so cruel to. I mean, I don't know, to everybody. I mean, I love that book, but it's always he needs to get away with it. But I'm always like, all right, this is too much.
I don't know if I ever told you, but I forced my family members to read that book because I said, read it and tell me who you think it is, and everyone to a T read it and went, oh my God, it's Uncle Wally. It's him. I'm like, yep.
Wow.
He was a very eccentric fella. And he shared some of the thoughts and habits of Ignatius J.
Wow.
Yeah, real
Hopefully
guy.
not the thing with the glove. That was hopefully no one knew anything about that.
I don't remember. Oh, I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. This one's good because it touches on some stuff we hadn't looked about. Ian, I finished Gravity's Rainbow a few months before you started this book, and I'll vouch that there are a lot of moments that reek of attempts to be Thomas Pynchon. The present tense narration, constant bombardment of new characters, toilet-based humor, and attempts to pack in a million themes per page. Even the Pawpaw Soldiers bit directly parallels a subplot of Gravity's Rainbow about a battalion of Namibian soldiers. The difference is Pynchon trusts the reader to figure out his points without hammering them in, and has moments of actual beauty. Also, you do need to listen to more Phil Ochs, assuming Sean hasn't tainted him for you. Part of what turned Dylan away from Protest Folk was feeling inferior to Phil. Also, read about how he died. It's a weird story. So I did look about how he died. I'm just going to read from Wikipedia because it is pretty interesting. Ochs' drinking became more and more of a problem, and his behavior became increasingly erratic. He frightened his friends both with his drunken rants about the FBI and CIA and about his claiming to want to have Elvis's manager, Colonel Tom Parker, or Kentucky Fried Chicken's Colonel Sanders manage his career.
As long as it was a colonel.
He just wanted a not real colonel to assume his control of his career. And then he says, in the mid 1975, Ochs took on the identity of John Butler Train. So he sort of did a Chris Gaines type of thing. He told people that Train had murdered Ochs and that he, John Butler Train, had replaced him. Train was convinced that someone was trying to kill him, so he carried a weapon at all times, a hammer, a knife, or a lead pipe.
Oh, really? So the hammer thing is from Phil.
I guess so. I mean, It's, so there's that, I guess. Like, it doesn't make me appreciate him anymore. It just makes me think that, man, I guess we could have been reading a book about Phil Ochs's final days. That would have been much more interesting.
Right.
Let's see. I've got just a couple more. Kurt. So you're just wrapping up Bob Honey, but I finished it weeks ago. It seems so long ago now that I joyfully waited to read the next saga of Jake Cardigan's meeting about possible meetings. It was a blast to surprise friends from reading out loud from the adventures of Grigner, but I couldn't wait to get Bob Honey out of my house. By the end, I read it forcefully, driven to expel the mind of Sean Penn from my consciousness. As I powered through the last half of the book in a single sitting, my only interruptions were the constant sighs escaping my mouth and my eyes rolling around away from the page. When I threw the book to the ground, I became aware of the pain in my face. The hours of a contemptuous, ugly sneer had left me with a physical reminder of what I had just read. Perhaps this is not an isolated phenomenon. Perhaps all people who encounter Sean Penn in real life come away with an ugly rictus that makes them appear as a warped version of reality. Perhaps Sean Penn's characters have truly given us a glimpse into what the view of life is from your heated pool.
Yeah, he brings up the phenomenon, when Bridget and I will be watching something that I know that we're not enjoying, and I'll turn and just kind of look at her face, and then I'll go, here's what you're doing. You don't know you're doing this.
Right. Yeah, it sort of just has crept on to your face. Oh, man. Yeah, but the sighs and the grimacing are not something you get when you're reading something you enjoy.
Yeah, a lot of Norman groaning coming from reading this book.
2 more emails. Travis, this book does continue to have a remarkable capability to make you question whether or not you really do like the things you thought you liked, like books, people, poetry, laughter, ice cream, music, or slopping coffee. Mike's 0 grade for this in the last episode is spot on. I can't wait to find the books that rank lower. If one can't be found, I'll get to work on my fan fiction, which chronicles Ramona Quimby's late, hard life as a salesperson at the CarMax just outside of Portland, Oregon, United States, North America. Just the fact that the thrash writing style is something that people are able to refer to, it sort of makes the entire venture worthwhile.
Yeah, it is something that they carry with them with a little bit of joy. I don't see that there'll ever be anything, as we go down the road, should we do another one of these, that people will be, doing mashups with Sean Penn.
Yeah, exactly. If they do alliteration, we'll just we'll be angry at them. Perry, I just finished this book, a book I purchased in hardcover with my meager wages, and I feel what one might call catharsis coming catheter-like into my curdled core, or at least or at least that's what an asshole might say. I hate and love this book like Gollum hates and loves the ring. I have made threadbare my life through constant quoting of passages to passers-by and the other passengers of my passion. I can't stop the alliterations. In closing, I hope we will all find ourselves someone willing to sit mostly naked under our desks while we wear their hair as a wig to trick our assassins. We will try to make it, won't we? That's quoting, of course, Santa from Santa and the Ice Cream Bunny.
Yeah, very nice. Pulling in a deep cut.
Yeah, so I appreciate that because, if we can, essentially the movie version of Thrasher Tice book. So well done, everybody. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. It was great to hear that we were not the only ones, or that, there's not even really any contrarians out there who are like, hey, man, you're just, you guys are the ones missing the. I'm glad we're not just we're preaching to the choir, I suppose.
Yeah, I expected at least a small percentage of people to say, no, you guys, if you had read all the authors that he'd read, you'd get where he's coming from, or
right, it's on us.
Which is probably still, somewhat true. Maybe there is a way, if you're really into that stuff, where this is kind of a it's a very inferior version of it, but it's okay. But I don't think we got any of that, did we?
No, not a single one. But we might as well close it out with our final dumb sentences of the week.
A sentence begins with a capital letter. A capital letter is a letter that's big. A capital letter is not a small letter. A capital letter is big, big, big. A sentence ends with a period.
All right. Well, why don't you give it a go?
Here we go. This is one that I forgot to highlight here, but this one comes from Sharon. Her sentence was from something that Annie was saying. My love and vagina, parentheses, on your team.
Oh, that was mine. Burned.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was she said if someone prior to my starting this book had read that sentence to me and explained it was culled from this book, I suspect I would have lost the will to live. I thought, that was sort of like a letter she wrote him. And I was like, remember that famous letter from Sullivan Ballou that was in the Ken Burns Civil War where they play the Ashokan farewell he's writing to his dearest Emma or whoever, and I wish that was how she had responded to that guy's letter. My love and vagina on your team, Sullivan.
Oh, beautiful.
This is from Chris. This is another one that goes along with your theory that we're transforming into Batman here. But his was this is a car bomb going off. Many people are killed. Kaboom! Flicker flash! Smoky dokey and fire. So that's how that works for him. All caps, smoky dokey and fire.
I don't know how I missed that. I'm just found it now in the book. Wow, it is smoky dokey and fire. I thought that was coffee being poured into a cup. Maybe that's why I was confused by it.
Mine was, this is another one that just like, it stood out for being needlessly incoherent this late in the game. You can't depress the depressed, for whom fear is the folly of static scoundrelism. And again, just like the words, I know what the words mean one by one, but I'm not going to spend the time, man, to sort out the whole meaning you're trying to convey here.
Well, it's that common word, scoundrelism.
Yeah, and not like rapidly changing scoundrelism, static.
Yeah, I've got mine. You ready?
Okay, yes, please.
There is pride to be had where the prejudicial is practiced with precision in the trenchant triage of tactile terminations.
God.
Yeah, there's
read it again.
There is pride to be had where the prejudicial is practiced with precision in the trenchant triage of tactile terminations.
Nope.
That's full out Norman groan. Ugh.
Yeah. And like, as you said, the part where things have actually, things have happened in this last section, but we're still getting inundated with that type of nonsense.
As a writer, have you had this moment where it's not self-congratulatory, but you come upon something that you think is pretty funny? Like I can imagine it being listened to by the end user, and it gives me delight to go, oh, this is going to be a good one.
Sure,
It makes me happy that I'm going to be able to share this with people. And I just think of Sean Penn writing that sentence. What do you think is happening on the end user of this? How do you think it's landing? Come on, man.
He's imagining people putting it as their like senior yearbook quote, or like a commencement speaker, like, and I will leave you with this as you go out into the world.
Right. Is that it?
Yeah, that is it. That's Bob Honey who just do stuff.
Ladies and gentlemen, we made it. We did it.
Yeah, the paperback comes out tomorrow, actually, from when we're recording this. So there's maybe some new attention about to be sent this book's way. Yeah,
he's going to get the 372 bump, that's for sure.
Lucky you, Penn. Anyway, so we have a Patreon that if you're interested in participating in some discussion on there, meme contests, getting every episode early, you can go to Patreon. We're going to give away these books that we'll sign to some lucky people on there. And I don't know. What else you got?
Well, are you game for another one of these? I mean, we can take the discussion off air, but it seems like for everyone, we need a palate cleanser. So
I think so. Yeah. I've got, we'll discuss it off air. I've got one that I think might work. That would be an interesting way to switch it up. Cause I was looking at the authors we've done, and there's a pattern to them that I think could be worth throwing a wrench into. But we can talk about it off air. But we've got a live show next week, a Riff Tracks live show that people should go see. Octoman.
Oh yeah, that's going to be good. Just take a look at the Octoman poster, and you'll get a flavor. You get a lot of that Octoman. You're gonna love him.
It's on Thursday the 18th. You can go see that in theaters live all across the country. I don't think there's any Sean Penn jokes. I don't think there's any. We keep that fairly separate, but maybe something will worm its way in the rewrite session.
Yeah, we usually silo it up, but this was a strong taste, so who knows? We might not be able to resist. But anyway, you did hear it here that we're going to be back. So we will be back for another 372 pages. That's pretty exciting.
So it is. And there's no way it's going to be worse than this one. That's, no matter what, I would say we could.
That's the 372 pages promise. There's no way it could be worse than this one. With that, we'll see you next time. So long,
Thank you,
everyone.
everybody. Bye.